Are you like me? You need some travel inspiration. You want to travel, but you don't have the time, or you feel like you can't, or it seems like this grand, spectacular occurrence that has to take place. Or maybe you are a travel person. Maybe you need some inspiration. Maybe you need to link up with a fellow traveler. Well, today on Spiritual Vitamin C, the podcast, we have a person who is all things travel. And this episode I have entitled Lifestyle Episode, Come Travel with Me. This is Kenya from Spiritual Vitamin C, the podcast. Truth alert. Living for God is the biggest win. Knowing how? Now that's the question. Story by story, we present and break down God's holy word and give practical tips on how to apply kingdom principles today. So stay tuned. Dominique Beaumonte, who I think of as a Renaissance man. He is a modern day do everything well. He is a elder in the church. He is a youth pastor. He serves as a youth ministry leader. He is a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. He is involved in not only just the four walls of the church, but he allows his reach to be felt outside of the church. He is involved in civil engagement and in outreach opportunities. He loves mentoring. He loves young people. He loves the Lord, and he loves to travel. And so today I have with me Dominique Beaumonte, and he also has his own podcast entitled Seasoned with Salt, the podcast. And he has his own travel blog known as Travel Beau. And I'm super excited that he said yes to coming on today. And so, Spiritual Vitamin C, let's welcome Dominique Beaumonte.
Hello, 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 hello.
How are you, Elder Beaumonte?
Extremely blessed, Dominique.
Oh my gosh, we're going to do that again.
No, you know what? You know what's so funny? I was thinking, like, what I want to be called, and then I was like, oh my gosh, I should go by the Travel Beau.
You know what? Okay, so when I was thinking of how what I would want to call you, I thought it would be kind of cool to call you Travel Beau.
That's funny.
Yes.
I think
So,
you should do that.
okay. So, his name is Dominique Beaumonte, but he's AKA the Travel Beau. And if you're like me, maybe you can kind of live a little bit through his life on his travel blog. And I'm so excited that he has agreed to come. And so, Mr. Travel Beau,
Hey,
how are you?
I'm doing really well. I'm doing really well. Like, I wish I was somewhere. And,
Where?
ooh, I have this really strong urge to drive to Benicia today. I love Benicia.
Okay. I have followed your page. And what's the deal with Benicia?
You know what? So a lot. So I don't know how. I don't know how deep you want me to get quickly, but essentially, I just had a season of life where I felt like my time was up in California, and I was like, oh my gosh, I want to move. I'm from Seattle. I like to miss my family. I don't have any blood relatives in the greater Sacramento area, so I was like, man, I just really want to get out and go somewhere. And when the pandemic happened, there wasn't anywhere to go, right? And I'm already a loner, right? Like I like being by myself, so like it wasn't like being at home wasn't like this like big relief. So I was like, I want to learn about places. And so some of my friends were having church during the pandemic outside, and I drive to where their churches were, and on the way back, like as the hotels would open, I'd stop by and like stay at these hotels. So this one particular time, actually a mutual friend of ours was having church. He invited me to preach. I came down. They had a great service and food afterwards, and I'm driving back to Sacramento, and I am dead dog tired. And I'm like, I got to figure out somewhere to stop. So I'm like, you know what? Wherever I stop, I'm gonna I'm gonna stay there. I'm gonna fall asleep. I'm gonna wake up and explore the city. And that was how I found out about Walnut Creek. So don't live in Walnut Creek. I'm like, wait a minute, like there's something to this whole Northern California thing that I have not discovered. It was this beautiful, spirited night where like all the restaurants are out on the streets and there's all these great. So I was like, oh my gosh, I need to keep doing this. So I left the next day. I left Walnut Creek and like started like venturing towards Benicia. I was just getting off at exits and like looking for parks and coffee shops and things that were open. And so that's sort of the beginning of my passion for Northern California travel and particularly Walnut Creek and um, uh, Benicia.
Wow. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. Yeah. Walnut Creek. My job headquarters is there. And so
Oh, yeah.
I've been there a couple times and it is really pretty. I
Yeah.
don't know about Benicia, but I believe it. If you said it is, then it's got to be beautiful. So,
Benicia's its own thing. You gotta like, I like water, so like you really have to. Later on, I'll tell you about like my fascination with parks and how like the
okay.
travel world came to be a thing. So
Okay.
it might bring some light to the beauty and value of Benicia. But yeah.
How did you get started with the travel bug, the travel bow, your love for travel?
Hmm. So after again, like after the pandemic started, I was just like working really hard. Earlier in the pandemic, the the job that I had at the time, I was sort of like running back and forth to the office to make sure that things were safe there. So I felt kind of tied to the office, at least to make sure that everything was okay, even though nobody was working there. And there was sort of this groove in the pandemic where people were actually like taking vacation and just like
Really?
I mean
That was happening?
that was happening. Like people were like, I'm tired of like being in front of Zooms. I'm tired of like I just need a
Okay.
mental break, even if it's just to go to a park. Things are starting to open up a little bit.
Okay.
And so the half of the leadership team at my job had gone on a vacation. And people were comfortable going to their family, just lots of things are happening in this season. So I was like, I'm not going to tell anybody, but I'm going to go in June. I think it was June of 2020. I'm like, I'm going to go to Seattle. I'm going to like crash on my brother's couch for a couple of days, and I'm just going to enjoy it. So I did that, and I had decided I'm going to go to every park that I could like find because like nobody wanted to do anything, and I was like, all the parks are open because you have to walk your dog. There's water, like so. This little town of Tacoma, Washington, I started going to parks, and then my brother would go to work, and I wouldn't have anything to do during the day, so I'd stay at his house for the weekday and fellowship with him. And then on the weekends, I'd get a hotel somewhere in like one of the more touristy parts of Washington, and I would like travel around the park and take pictures. And so that's how I came up with the idea of like being the travel ball. Because in my mind, I was gonna like find all these amazing places that people hadn't gone pre-pandemic that they would actually want to go to after the pandemic was over, or even like consider going while the pandemic was still actually happening. So that's what it was at the beginning. And then I came back to California. And that trip was supposed to be like a 4-day trip that turned into a month. When I came back to California, I was like, I know I go places that there are places in Northern California that people have no idea about or they think they know about. So like
Yes.
I'm the person that like gets in the car driving to I'm going to Napa,
Okay.
but I'm gonna stay on the freeway and keep going because there's like a city after that, and then I'm gonna get off and like see what that city's about. So I go during the when church started coming back.
Mhm.
I'd get in my car and I'd drive to Yountville, California. You're probably more familiar with the wine country spots, but
Not really. No, no, no. I'm living through your blog. So I'm not,
yeah,
I mean,
Yountville, California is like this beautiful place where the hotels are like $600 a night, and I was
really?
like, I gotta know, I gotta know like what this place is about. So I'm like, really, my love for travel like really initially centered around hotels. because
Okay.
I have always loved hotels. And when a part of my profession, I was doing site visits, and when there would be conferences and events hosted at certain hotel chains, because of my leadership role, I usually get like all of these like premium benefits or points. And so I'd have to go back to experience like some of these hotels. And then I'd end up being on like their like partner email list. So like if a new hotel was opening, like I get the email like, you gotta check out this new. So that's kind of like the genesis of my love for travel, like wanting to experience new hotels and travel places and just being like, I'm gonna go to the next city and see what's.
Wow. You're truly like a Renaissance man. Oh my gosh. And I think for me, I get nervous when I drive. Like I
Mm,
need to know where I'm going. Like I get really like I don't know, is frantic the right word? Frustrated. I just get really worried if I don't know where I'm going. And
mhm.
so like you can just jump in your car and just go. You can just go like that?
I think so, and I think a part of it is like honestly, like my focuses can sometimes be off. I don't know how I don't, this might resonate with some folks, maybe you or some of the listeners, but like I'm guilty of like being on my phone and just like driving somewhere and not paying attention and then realizing like I'm somewhere lost and like have to kind of get out of that after I have this conversation. So yeah, I can actually do that. And I think a part of it has to do with um, when I was growing up, like I was a foster kid when I was growing up, and there were very few places that we could go. Like I hadn't gotten on the plane until I was in, I think I was like 22, like something crazy like that. So um, when I was able to travel, and the more that God has opened up resources for me to be able to travel, like I'm like, where are we going? Also, I think really it's almost like God freed me to feel comfortable, like
Wow.
going somewhere without having a reason to go. Because the first part of my life,
Oh,
I, I always felt like there had to be a reason, like there had to be a conference, or there had to be an activity, or there had to be something attached to my going. And then I would spend all my money and all my time, and I would go to these places. But people would be like, "Oh yeah, you went to Chicago? Did you get Garrett's popcorn?" I'd be like, "No, I was just in the hotel where the conference was,"
wow.
and like that's. And I realized that I was actually spending more money like attaching myself to things, and I could give myself permission to go places and see things without it having to be some type of like affiliation or something that I was connected to.
Wow, it's taken me a long time to figure that out, that,
Mhm,
I don't need, like, a conference to have
mhm.
me in Wyoming. I can just go.
Yeah.
I am starting to travel now, like I took my first trip ever to Vegas.
Mhm.
Oh my goodness.
Wait, let me tell you my
Um,
biggest. Let me tell you my biggest thing though.
huh?
It,
Go ahead.
so I went to grad school in Las Vegas, and I didn't know I had never stepped foot on Las Vegas soil in my whole life. I had finished at the University of Oregon. I started a job as an admissions counselor at Southern Oregon University only because I heard you could get a rental car and drive places. And I was like 20 something. So I was like, if somebody else's rental car, I'll go. And then I decided to go to grad school at Las Vegas, but I had never been. I was like, I got to literally, this is my story. I got to Vegas one late Saturday night. I went to church that Sunday morning. I was a backslider. I got saved. I went to church like every Sunday. My friends from Washington and Oregon would come to Vegas and would expose me. I was there in grad school. And I lived right up the street from the strip. They would expose me to what it meant to be a tourist and experience Vegas. I had no idea.
Wow.
like that's how close minded I was. Oh no, I gotta, I can't do certain things I can't do. So yeah, I appreciate your first Vegas trip. What was it like? How'd you feel?
Um, it has such an energy to the city. I was always told that Vegas is beautiful at night and it's really ugly in the daytime, but like
Mhm.
that's not true.
Yeah.
I went there and just you knew I was a tourist because I was like looking up and taking pictures. Okay, so the replica thing was throwing me off. Like they have
Mhm.
Paris, and then there's like Egypt, and then
Uh-huh.
so I hear there's like an Italy that I didn't go
Uh-huh.
to. Like there's all these other like faraway places here. So
Mhm.
that I wasn't. I don't know. I mean, I heard about it, but I guess to see it off, firsthand is something different. But I loved walking through the Paris, that
Mhm.
whole area. Um,
Good shopping there.
Good shopping. So,
Mhm.
and other people were like, are you going to casino? And I'm like, no. I drop money on shopping. Like I went with two outfits, which is something I in my whole life I've never traveled
Mhm,
with
mhm.
nothing more than like 8 outfits.
Oh, wow.
But I purposefully had two outfits, so my mindset was different. I really wanted to experience it. I didn't want to be bogged down with a bunch of stuff. So I had two outfits, and I really just should have had none. I just should have, because I went over there and shopped anyways for everything that I
Yeah.
eventually wore.
Mhm.
The food was amazing. The Uber drivers were crazy. I loved their conversation. Um, and I also went to Cirque.
Mm. That was amazing.
I had a great time. Um, where else did I go? Oh, so I hit the monorail. I was
Mhm.
told by a lady, you got to jump on the monorail. And so I did that with my mom. I didn't go to the Sphere. So I now have a reason to go back. Like I
Mhm.
felt like the other day, like I could go back like really, really, really soon. So I
Mhm.
really enjoyed being in Vegas.
Yeah, you gotta go. You. There are themes to go because I know, like, when my friends came for like a bachelor party, that was an experience. Going for a wedding is an experience. Going for a boxing match is an
Okay.
experience. Going for a concert or to see a show is an experience. Like, if you're building your experience around like whatever hotel that you stay at. Since
Okay.
I went to church there, I was really into like Kojic and stuff like that. Like I really, my experience was, especially being a young adult. Like, can
Hmm.
you imagine being a young adult there in ministry? Like, we get out of morning worship and we would go to casinos where the buffets were like $5.
Really?
And then we go to evening service. We go to YPWW and evening service, and then go back to the buffets. And some of the older saints will be like, "Oh no, we don't, we don't go to
We
the
don't casino.
casino." But it's like, how can you not go to the casinos because like you can get steak and eggs for $5?
Yes. Yes.
So that's kind of always funny, but it's an amazing place, and like I think you can kind of pick your experience. I never was
Okay.
one of those people that was like, I'm gonna go the cheap route and just, like have the $39 hotel and like just be out on the strip. I'm more of like I want the best pool experience.
Yes.
Like I want to be in the water, then I want to walk the strip at night, that kind of thing. So you make it what you want it to be.
Yes. I am going back. It's only an hour
Mm.
from where I am, an hour and a half. That's
Uh-huh.
crazy. All this time. I don't know. Maybe it's just the mindset of like, let me pack and go.
Yeah,
But I wasn't even half finished. I had to stop shopping.
yeah, yeah,
I was like, just a lot of money here.
yeah.
So
And it's
I
a
do want
beautiful,
to go back.
and things are open later, right? So you could like
Yes.
go on a Saturday morning and come back on a Sunday night and you will have had like a really full experience, right? Like, if you're going to rest, like last time that I went, one of my friends was preaching at a church and I surprised him. I stayed off the strip in a really nice place, that had a spa and I just kind of relaxed. And then on the way out, I hit some of the spa, some of the spots on the strip and stuff. So you make it what you want it to be.
What's one of your favorite spots on the strip?
So I really I like the aria. Like I love the wind.
Okay.
Um, Honestly, like when I was there, I spent a lot of time at the fashion show mall. I
I
just
was there.
Yeah, it's a lovely place, and now California. Now I had never lived in California before, or even visited California when I was in Vegas, which is a whole different conversation. But I just, to me, like that was the epitome of a mall. And I love the Paris. Like those are like just for me. Like I would just I think of something that I needed. Like those were the malls that were in my neighborhood, right? 'Cause UNLV is very close to the strip, so I'd be like, oh, let me run there, and there's like ballet is free, and like you know, so it's just a lot of different things. So I love the fashion show mall. And I love at that time I love the Bellagio too.
Okay.
Hmm.
I didn't see that.
That's
I
the
didn't
big
see that.
fountain in the front.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
Wow. So you're just not afraid. I don't know. You're very fearless, and that's very inspiring.
The traveling, yes. This is spiritual vitamin C, right? Like somebody will listen to this episode and they'll be like, you know what? Like the constraints that I put on myself when it comes to travel, like are socially constructed so that I live my whole life and not see the world. The, let me bring this to scripture, right? Can you imagine what it would be like to be the Apostle Paul on his journey to Rome? Like all the different places that he went.
Right.
Think about like you're reading through Judges and you're thinking about the children of Israel and all of the places that they stopped, and there were monuments there that represented experiences that the children of Israel had. And I was reading something in the Bible today about when God spoke to Gideon, and he named the place Jehovah Shalom. And the scripture says that to this day, that place is still called Jehovah Shalom. And I thought about like how the you know that scripture that says remember the landmark, the old landmarks, and
Yes.
don't get rid of them, don't depart from them. All of these beautiful things that exist in all these beautiful cities, states, and countries are landmarks that represent things that I think God wants us to see, right? And I think that sometimes our there are social constructs that make travel like people honestly like I appreciate your affirmation of like my travel, but I will tell you that there are a lot of people that are uncomfortable with it. And
Really?
people will be like, oh, you're here, like, you know, like, oh, traveling around the world. Like I think that sometimes like people associate travel with sin.
Yes.
Right, because in their world, like what you be doing in that hotel, or like you know,
It's
like
true.
it's a world that for some reason they don't feel control of. But like sin is pervasive and it is sin no matter where it is. So if you're into
Yes.
it in Santa Rosa or Sacramento or
Yes.
Seattle or Detroit or wherever you live, that's what sin is going to follow you. You're going to follow sin.
Yes.
Um, but I noticed that people would be really reluctant to that because they attach travel to number one, sin. And I think number two, they attach it, they view it as a luxury, right? It's something that you have to earn. like you
Oh,
have to
okay.
like you have to work hard and then take a vacation. You have, and then in order to fully freely travel, not only do you have to have all the resources and the time off, but somebody in your professional world has to affirm your ability to travel. And I think for me, especially with the pandemic, I realized that like I earned the time, the PTO or whatever it is. I'm not asking my work for permission to travel. I'm telling them that I'm going somewhere. Like I can go paid or I can go unpaid. You get to choose, right? Because we have one life, right?
Yes.
I'm really inspired by people who are like, I'm gonna go to all 50 states, or I wanna,
Mm.
go to these monuments, or I wanna spend, and I do think that believers have to be careful. I went to Palm Springs for my 41st birthday, and it was just too hot to have all clothes on. Like, like, and I was really, really careful because I'm the type of person I like to travel by myself, and I know that makes people uncomfortable because they're like, "Who are you really with?" No, I'm really with myself. And when I get married, I'm almost sure that like there will be some independent traveling and some collaborative traveling that is also to some extent independent. Um, but I felt this sort of like I felt that when I went to Palm Springs once, I felt like that pull to be like, you're at the pool, don't take a picture. And for me, some of it was about just like spiritual maturity because once I was sort of freed of that, I remember being in Hawaii. I had never been to Hawaii, um, Kenya. I remember I was flying into Hawaii and I was like, tears were coming down my eyes because I had no reason to go. Like, I had created a reason to go because I got a nephew there and whatever, but I feel like I had no reason to go, and I was so happy to be there. And it wasn't like, ooh, I'm wealthy, I can go to Hawaii. It was more like, God, thank you for exposing me, thank you for positioning me to have this opportunity without having to be going somewhere.
Yes.
And I was in this infinity pool and like
Mm.
feeling very reluctant about sharing what I was experiencing with other people. And God reminded me of that feeling that I had when I was on the plane. All that gratitude that was like welling up as emotion in me. And it was sort of like if the way that you show gratitude is by showing all the wonders that I have, like you can do that, right? And so like I just did it. Kind of freed me in a sense because I think some other people want to go to Vegas, but they don't know, you know,
Yeah.
how people are gonna think about it. Like, what are people gonna feel? Well, this you can be saved and sanctified and filled with the Holy Ghost and
Yes.
enjoying the pool.
Yes. Yes to the pool ministry. My mom threw me in the pool when I was 6 months.
Oh, yeah.
I was taking lessons.
Mhm.
Taking lessons at 6 months. Yes to the
Now
pool
you swim.
ministry. Huh?
And now you can swim.
Hey, I can swim in 5 feet of water, 12 feet of water. Yes, I love swimming. I really wanted to swim in Vegas, but
Mhm.
I was too busy in the stores.
Yeah.
I was too busy in the streets. But it's something that you say, like people think you're going to be sinning because people were like, "Were you going to Vegas to gamble?" Like, where we live, there's like a casino right up the road. Like, I don't have to go out of state to be kind of and engaging in shenanigans or whatever. I'm not dropping my money like that. But I like what you said I had no reason to go. um when I think about now this is the real, when I think about like conferences in Dallas or
Mhm,
wherever,
mhm, mhm,
um like Lord, can I go, should I go, and then when it comes to like travel, I'm like going in prayer, like what is, like I had to see that, like in my mind somewhere. I think that God is so for me going to all these conventions,
mhm,
but maybe there's a little bit of restraint or hesitation on his part for me to go on vacation. And I had to see that in my own mind,
mhm,
that I don't even think twice about booking and dropping like thousands of dollars easy on a
mhm,
church convention,
mhm,
because that's kind of that's the culture that I live in, and this is what we're doing, and
mhm,
but it just started to occur to me that I don't want to be running through life. And when I look back, my memories are just, this is no shade, but just a bunch of conventions, or
mhm,
I'm running so fast that I don't know what my memories are because I
mhm,
was too busy just whatever. So I have made it like a point to travel now. I am prioritizing travel.
mhm,
I used to feel like I would have to say I'm sorry because I'm traveling.
mhm.
Um, and because I thought that my perception is that maybe God didn't want me to travel. So I had to like break through all the psychological stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it's
you know what I
work.
mean? so
Mhm,
that so that I could enjoy myself. And you were talking about like this feeling like going to Hawaii. Like I really felt that way about about going to Las Vegas.
And you know what happens that I think we have to realize that just sometimes we're afraid to leave because we feel like we're leaving something behind that like needs us. Sometimes you need a
Yes.
break from it, and sometimes it needs a break from you. And sometimes you going away helps you to appreciate what you left more, and sometimes what you left learns to appreciate you more, right? And and so like you're it's a blessing when people are like, "Oh my gosh, we miss you," But it's also a blessing to know like I was actually somewhere enjoying myself. My church mother, she went to Hawaii a couple of weeks ago, and I think in people's mind, people were like, "Oh yeah, you must just really rested," and she said something that like really got me to thinking. She was like, "I had decided to be a tourist on that trip, and I didn't rest the way that people think that I rested. And so when I got home, like I needed to decide to rest, to recalibrate. And sometimes travel is that, right? Like when you're saying, I'm gonna overextend myself, I got a project, I got things I wanna see, I wanna explore. And sometimes you're gonna go to that boutique hotel and sit by the pool and like order some food, right? Like I mean it just depends on like what your body needs, and what you need spiritually and mentally. Uh, You mentioned earlier what's the deal about Benicia? There's a park bench there, and I'm not. God is omnipresent, and He talks and speaks and moves everywhere. But for some strange reason, I have built this sort of pattern where God has really spoken to me on this park bench in Benicia by the
Okay.
water. And I go there. Sometimes there have been times when I've been able to sit there for 10 minutes. There have been times when I've sat there for 3 hours, right? And it is, God probably doesn't need that park. I'm sure, like I preached last Sunday and I didn't go to the park. Right. I mean, so it's not like God doesn't need that park, but for me, it represents like stealing away, right?
Mm.
Like like clearing my mind, like freeing myself of all these sort of external things that are sort of like, hey, and really just deciding to focus. And sometimes you can make a place mean something, even if the people who live there or go there don't see it that way, right? I love a little park in Seattle called the Pettis Park. It is a very small park that you just sit on the water and you talk to yourself or to the other randoms that show up, and then you just go on about your day, right?
Wow.
So,
Introvert.
hmm
That's you.
hmm you know, people are struggling with that, and I understand because my profession, my confession, my call all don't really align with introversion in people's eyes. I like people, they just don't fuel me the way that time alone does. Whereas people who are extroverts, like they need 16 people around them and they're refueled.
They need that social interaction.
Yeah, I can take it. Usually, when I am overwhelmed by it, I just need a couple of days break. So I think the term that I've been rolling with, the sort of a newer term, is ambivert. I think that's what I
Okay.
am. That's somewhere in the middle. Like it's
Okay.
just I could be fueled by people, but I also feel really guilty after I've had a lot of social interaction because I know how I want, like what I feel, like what I'm thinking, or and I know I can like overdo it, and then I'm just like, oh my gosh, did I scare these people? Like, was I too much? Like, am I gonna, you know?
Are you going to regret it later?
am I gonna regret it later? Did I say something that usually I would say to myself, but like I was sort of overwhelmed with the movement and the people that I'm like, okay, I gotta rewind what I said to make sure I didn't say something crazy. I'm the person that like sends a text message like 30 minutes after, like, if I said anything, forgive me. I just because I don't know. I'm so just something goes off in me like you're being socially interactive. You might as well just go all in, and then it's just like, oops.
That's right. Go all in. You know what I'm realizing is people don't fit in neat boxes, and this
Mhm.
has just been kind of a well, it's been happening maybe for a good year, but I know I don't fit in certain boxes, and I'm okay with that. Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think I'm an extrovert, but then there's times if I'm around people that's new, or if I'm kind of not sure, I can
Mhm.
shut down in a minute.
Yeah.
But then there's, so what I like to say is that people don't fit in these neat boxes.
Mhm.
Today I may be just popping and I'm talking to everybody, like in Vegas, and I think because they engage me, then I was like, okay, well, I can just go in. And then there's time when I just don't want to talk to anybody. Like,
Mhm.
so as far as like going to parks, there's this one park where I
Mhm.
live. And let me tell you, it's just absolutely beautiful. And the Lord gave me this maybe a good year and a half ago because I had just so much going on. And I didn't want to go home because if I go home, I go to sleep. Or I sit outside my car for like 30 minutes, trying to just gather up whatever I need to walk in this house
Uh-huh.
and just be home. And I didn't want to be home, and so there's just there's the one certain park, right, or the one
Mhm.
certain street where it is really like magical, where I go in and it almost seems like the city disappears.
Mhm.
And there have been times that I've like gotten out and I've like walked around. I'm like, I can't be walking on the trail by myself.
Yeah.
So I get back in my car, and what I've done is like I've brought the word of God, and I've dropped my windows, and I've dropped my chair, and I'm like just there
Mhm.
for an hour, and then when I feel better, I go home and go to sleep.
Yeah.
So I do understand about like a certain place, and
Mhm.
God meets you because it doesn't have to be in church.
No.
Um,
No.
God knows what we need, and once again, things are not like in neat little boxes because it makes us comfortable.
Mhm.
um yeah, God is spirit. He's
Yeah.
like everywhere, so
That in itself, what you just said, is like enough to like power your sort of passion for travel, right? Just wanting to be where God is and realizing that society and even church culture has put him in a box, but like, like even just going to another church, like, or going to something where, and I'm not talking about like taking risk. I'm talking about just being in community with other believers and just being like, oh, my stuff is not the only stuff that's cracking, or like my issues aren't the only issues that I'm not. I'm not alone, right? Like it's just there's something about like realizing that like Oakland might have as good a gumbo as
Mhm.
New Orleans. Like you're like, what? Shut up, right? Like, so it's a beautiful thing. You know what else that inspired travel for me too? I don't know because I've never been a TV person, and I do not know what to watch on TV. Like more recently, I've become a person that has a TV. Um, but whenever I check in the hotels, the only thing that I knew to watch that I wouldn't be like starting in the middle was House Hunters on HGTV.
Mhm.
And you know what would fascinate me is like all that you learn about the culture of a town or a city, like based on like a couple of people traveling around trying to pick somewhere to live. That also like it's like, oh my gosh, I want to go to Austin one day because I remember watching House Hunters and like they were in Austin and like so I that's another thing that I really love. I'm the person that will like disappear after the AIM convention and get a rental car and just drive to see like what the houses look like in the real neighborhoods.
That's
Because
courageous.
it is courageous, but you have to do a little bit of research, right? Like, you get the little magazines or like
Yes.
you open it and it's like you just type in that the address where the house doesn't look like, it does. But it does like it can be uncomfortable because without knowing the culture of a place, like, but it's also more rewarding in the end when like you're reflecting on what you did in a place and what you did not just aligns with what people think you should have done there, but the things that you're passionate about. I love architecture and the way that
Oh.
houses look, and I love that's valuable to me. Like I don't want to like just my experience. My church in Vegas was like in what some would consider a rough part of the city of Vegas, and I just loved going there a couple of times a week. Like there was a lady named Mother Fletcher and Mother Edwards, and she lived around the corner from the church. And I didn't feel like going back to the university community and the strip after church and then coming back. So I would sometimes like go and sit on their porch the whole time and just watch people being natives, right? Like and then learn what it is that is important to them so that I'm not just a person who sees this as a place where people come to gamble and in fact, like as a black man, I need a haircut. I don't want to. I'm not gonna get a haircut in the strip. Like there are those things that like so there are real people that live in these very real places that have very real experiences, and I think that's the beauty of travel too. And and I love what you said earlier because for some people it is about the concerts and the things, but like if you decide to go somewhere and you say, I'm going to experience this place based on the recommendation that I get from the Uber driver or the front desk person at the hotel, or like your experience is going to be beautiful and different. Like you can make some other things there, but like when I went to St. Louis one time, I didn't have my clergy. It was in St. Louis or somewhere, and like I needed to get one because official day was coming, and I just I'll never forget like putting on Facebook like, where can I get a clergy shirt from? And nobody really knew, and calling places. No, you know where it was? It was Indiana.
Okay.
And like I took an Uber to a place to get a clergy shirt because it was like AIM or something, and I'll just never forget like the experience that I had like riding in the car with that Uber driver and just asking him questions about the city and the neighborhood and like his experience there. And so you can create a lot of beauty in travel, and you don't really have to go far to do it. It's just it's a decision that you have to make mentally.
Travel your therapy?
I would say so. I will also say though that it is commendable that you went somewhere and only took 2 outfits. I think for me,
I know.
yeah, I think for me, like driving is my therapy, and I think that I have found out that like in-state travel is more beautiful than out-of-state travel for me. I have a lot of anxiety about like because I used to be a person that I could just get up and go, and then I was if I'm stressed out about something, that's all I'm stressed out about. Like when I was looking for a collar and a clergy shirt in Indiana, I'm certain I missed an opportunity to fellowship and to people watch. And so I think that like you have to be very intentional. Like so I've become that. I realized a couple of weeks ago that even though I might be saving money, it's not a good idea for me to take a 5 a.m. flight somewhere if I have a full day, right? Because I'm not going to be emotionally, spiritually, physically, I'm not showing up the way that I want to show up, right? Like, and so sometimes it can be stressful. You have to, but it also can be therapy, like the release, the flying away, the like the thinking about what you're unloading, like making the decision to rest and whatever you're leaving behind, even if it's for a day or 2 days or 3 days, will take care of itself. Yes.
This episode did not end abruptly, but there's a part 2. So please come back for the next episode, the conclusion of the travel edition with the Travel Beau. He is continuing to dish out insights to travel, hotels, cities, coffee, food. You're going to want to hear it. So come back for the conclusion of Traveling with the Travel Beau. And all information for Dominique Beaumonte is linked in the show notes. If you enjoyed this episode of Spiritual Vitamin C, please subscribe. I would also love it if you would rate it and leave a review. I look forward to seeing you next time. And remember, life needs a dose of Christ.